This is a crazy simple business model, my friend. Jim keeps telling me I could get paid just for taking random widgets off a shelf in a store and moving them to Amazon or eBay. Sign me up. But wait, is that even ethical? I can't wait to hear how Jim explains this one, and then I'm going shopping for deals. I'm looking forward to this one, my friend. Now here's your host, Jim Cockrum.
Hey, welcome back. I'm your host, Jim Cockrum. This is Silent Sales Machine Radio, and I am super excited today about a topic that I've had bouncing around in my head because I run into a lot of people in our community that struggle with this issue, and maybe you struggle with it and you don't even realize it, and today we're going to fix it. Because until we fix this one little issue that you may not even realize is bouncing around in your brain, you simply can't succeed to your full potential. And the issue we're going to tackle today is simply this. Is arbitrage a morally virtuous activity? Now, some of you may not even know what I just said. Let me break it down into plain English, real clear, so you can enjoy this discussion and debate. There'll be a link below or wherever you see the show notes for this show. If you go to silentjim.com, you can always see the show notes for every show. Let's talk about it there. But here, let me put it in plain English. If I go into a retail store and they have widgets there for $10 a piece that are selling for $80 on eBay or Amazon or Facebook Marketplace or wherever I might turn around and flip those for a profit, we call that arbitrage. If I buy them for 10 and sell them for 80. Have I provided any value to anyone? Have I actually put a valuable service out there to the world that I can be proud of? Is it morally virtuous to take a product from point A to point B and make a profit in doing so? Well, that's the question on the floor. That's what we're going to tackle today. I don't expect that everybody has to agree with me, but remember, as I told you back in episode 0, if you haven't heard episode 0 yet, you'll have to go back and reference it sometime. It's not on iTunes. It's the only episode of my podcast that isn't on iTunes. It's actually at silentjim.com, and I go through and explain how I take a biblical approach to business, meaning I'm doing my absolute best and I study rigorously to make sure that the business decisions and the teachings that I put out into the world are biblically founded. Now, is Facebook in the Bible? No, but how you treat other people sure is. So I treat other people on Facebook according to the same biblical standards that I treat if they were right here with me in real life. So the Bible addresses all of these issues. You don't have to embrace the Bible as your guidebook for life to benefit from the advice and the counsel, just like many of my clients. I don't go in and say, well, now you have to be a Christian for this to work. I don't tell them that. I just say, hey, the last 50 times we tried this, it worked. Do you want to try this? And they say, sure. They don't know or care. I don't care if they care, but it's a biblical principle. That's what we're going to do today with this. So is arbitrage, and you may do it retail store when you go in and you buy stuff. You may do it online. You may do it by going to yard sale, finding things for $5 or $10 here or there and going back home, taking them home. Maybe you clean them up, maybe you don't, and you flip them and you make a profit. Is that a morally virtuous activity? That's the question for the floor today. And now, just in case you find yourself thinking, well, Jim, I don't care about this topic. Who cares if it's morally virtuous or not? What's that have to do with me? I just need to make some money to pay the electric bill and to keep my cable on. I understand. But here's why it matters, and it should matter to you that we're going to address this question, because there's ample evidence, and I'm not going to attempt to prove that on today's podcast, but there's ample evidence that if you are involved in a business that you think is not virtuous, your odds of success are exponentially lower than if you believe you are actually providing a valuable, virtuous service to the world. That just makes sense, right? If you're thinking the entire time you're doing your business activities, you're thinking to yourself, I don't believe in this. I don't think this is right. I don't feel good about this. I'm not providing any value to anybody. I'm a terrible person for even thinking about doing this. Why am I doing this for a living? I wasn't made for this. What are your odds of success? I mean, come on, seriously. This isn't rocket science. On the other hand, if you believe in the virtue of the activities you are involved in and you feel like it's benefiting others and you're providing value to others and you're making a profit along the way, which from my vantage point, the only way to make a profit is to do those things, but that's a side note. then you're going to succeed. You're going to have much greater odds of success. So this sounds like an interesting topic, doesn't it? Let's dive in. So I figured there's 3 different kinds of people here that are going to be listening to this, and you're in one of these 3 categories. Either you're already fully convinced of the moral virtue of selling physical products online, or you're kind of wavering in it. You're not sure. Your mind isn't quite made up yet, or you think it's an evil, unvirtuous price gouging arrangement, and there's zero value there, and shame on anyone who's doing it. Well, if you're in that 3rd category, I may or may not be able to win you over today, and I'm not actually trying to, because you can have whatever worldview you want to have. But I believe I can make a very compelling case that not only is it a legitimate business model, but there is a high level of virtue in that business model of taking widgets that cost $10 off a retail shelf and then selling them for $80 to someone online. As a matter of fact, all business operates that way. In the Hebrew tradition, you see, there's only 2 ways to make a profit, to build a business. If I'm remembering this correctly from lessons, and I'm going to incorporate a few different lessons from one of my mentors who will be a guest on our show at some point. Actually, it's booked here in a few weeks. He is my favorite living author. His name is Daniel Lapin, and the business book that I recommend all the time, I don't care if you're a Christian or not. I don't care if you're an atheist. I don't care what your worldview is. This book is the bomb when it comes to business advice. It's not common sense stuff. It's called Business Secrets from the Bible. And I'm just telling you, that book is full. It talks about money and business like every other page if you're paying attention. All kinds of valuable lessons. And that's what I credit my success and the success of my clients, many of whom don't even know I'm a Christian. It's irrelevant. It doesn't come up. I don't introduce myself by saying, "Hi, I'm Jim. I'm a Christian. And if you don't like Christians, sorry, we can't work together." I don't do that. But my foundation of everything I believe and everything I do is based in that book, and it's taken me to some very successful places. So jumping back to the point I was making, in the Hebrew tradition, there's only 2 ways to build a legitimate business. It has to do with your hands and your feet. You can use your hands to make something, to carve something, to craft something, to build something, to dream something up and then bring it to the world, blood, sweat, and tears. Or you can put the blood, sweat, and tears into your feet, meaning you take it from somewhere where it's not valuable to somewhere where it is of increased value. Both of these activities involve risk. Both of these activities involve you creating value where there wasn't some before. I mean, imagine trying to sell bottles of water near a bubbling spring of fresh water. There you are. You've got your business idea. You set up your little stand. It's in the mountains of the Himalayas where all this beautiful, fresh, bubbling water just pops up, or maybe it's melting at this point. I don't know, but you understand my illustration. You've got this beautiful, pure, crystal clear water. And there you are thinking, I'm going to sell bottled water right here. How many customers are you going to have? None, because the water's right there. If somebody wants it, they can walk up and get it. But if you want to create a valuable business model, how about instead of trying to sell your bottles of water right there, you take them down from the mountain where you filled them with that awesome water. And I'm not a water Nazi, guys. I'll drink any water. I don't care. I do have a nice purification system. I did pay a lot of money for it, and I like it, and I drink it when I can. But I'm one of these guys that, like, if there's a water fountain, I'll drink it. I don't care. But I do see the value in being able to walk into a gas station like, oh, yeah, I'll grab a bottle of water and pay a couple bucks for it. And I see the value in that business model. I know it's good water. So someone's making money on it. They used both their hands and their feet. Someone did. They paid someone to create value to the point where someone was willing to spend money. So there's 2 ways to create value. We've established hands or feet, right? You create something or you move something from a place where it has little value to a place where it has more value. And that may seem obvious to you. You're like, oh, of course, Jim, that's business. Yeah, that's how it works, right? Everyone understands that. That works the whole world over, right? Well, no, it actually is illegal in a lot of places. Did you know that? Our oldest son, his name is Chase. We adopted him as an infant from Russia. That was our first child. So here my wife and I are in Russia. We're 20 and 25 years old, maybe 26 and 21. So we're in the country of Russia. Never been there before. She hasn't. Actually, I was there, played some basketball there. That was great. But that's a story for another time. But we're in Russia and we just notice, it's very different feeling there. This is the, mid 90s. And it's just a different feel. Communism has fallen. Russia's supposed to be opening up in a whole new way of seeing the world, and the books are starting to be written about what it was really like behind the dark curtain that was communism that engulfed Russia. And I was reading through a book while we were there about just the economic realities of day to day of Russia. And so we're talking about, using your hands and your feet to create value. And we just assume in most free market economies, like anyone can take anything from anywhere they want and take it anywhere else. Well, no, you can't in Russia. That's called black market in Russia. Now, I'll give you a very specific example. They had, for many, many years, for decades, czars in Russia who were in charge of different industries. So there was a czar of dairy products, milk, cheese, all that. They had a guy in charge with a committee, and these guys were wealthy now, okay? These guys had stacks of cash. They were living the dream. They were part of the elite. But this elite czar class decided for everyone else how many dairy farmers there would be, how much milk they would get to produce, how much cheese they would get to produce, what the price of that milk and cheese would be, and which cities would get how much milk and cheese. So we could keep everything on an equal playing field. They were in charge of all things that had anything to do with dairy, and they controlled it from the top down. No free market activities allowed. To the point where you had cities, and this is history, look it up. You don't have to believe me. Look it up. So you'd have cities located 20 miles from each other. And in one city, you'd have milk in so much excess supply at such a ridiculously low price that it was rotting on the shelves. Everyone was like, no, I don't need any more milk. We've got all the milk we could possibly need. Now, if you have any meat, we'd love to talk to you. But milk, it's everywhere. It's so cheap. It's rotting on the shelves. We got milk that's a week from expiring that we know we're never going to sell. So you might think to yourself, well, an enterprising entrepreneur just needs to take that milk from one city and find a city where they don't have it. Yeah, 20 miles away, there's another city that's desperate for milk. Now, it's the same price there, right? Because the prices are fixed across the board. Milk is the exact same price in that second city, but you can't find it anywhere because the czars, in their infinite wisdom, had done some miscalculations and sent far too little milk to that second city. So it sells out instantly. There's no milk to be found. So if you were to get in your car and go from one city to the other and gather up all that milk that's a week from expiring and take it to the second city and attempt to sell it, that's illegal black market activity. Welcome to the gulag, which is a place you don't want to be. Russian prison. That's where you go to vanish. That's where you go to disappear in the old Soviet Russia. And there's remnants of this to this day. This is what it looks like when you don't have free markets. As soon as you remove the ability for people to use their hands and their feet to create, to add value, to grow businesses, that's where you go next. That's why I believe 100% that free market is a biblical model. That's the way the world is supposed to work. That's why the greatest economy that the world has ever seen grew out of unfettered free market principles, where anybody can compete with anybody and charge whatever price they want for whatever they want. And there's no such thing as gouging, which is a term that comes up a lot. And we'll get real specific in just a minute about gouging and what is gouging and what isn't gouging. And again, our premise is it virtuous to take a widget off the shelf for $10 and sell it for $80 online? Is there virtue in that? Can you be proud of that model? But before we go too much further, I want to make one other point before we dig in real deep here. And that's this. Maybe you're not someone who has a passion for business, for selling widgets for $10 and making $80. Maybe you come from that school of thought where someone's told you at some point, and we talked about this on earlier podcasts, guys, so I'll make it brief. But someone told you at some point, do what you love, son. Young lady, do what you love, and you'll never work a day in your life. And I told you how much I don't like that message, right? The reason I don't like that message is the premise is, one, work is bad, and it's a very self-centered message. Like, okay, if I only do what I love, let's see, I love sitting on the bank of a river and fishing. That's what I love. That's what I'm passionate about. And I never have to work a day in my life. Awesome. I'm going to go fishing every day. If we all did that and none of us added value, the world would not be where it is. Technology would not advance. We would not have these incredible advances in technology and medicine and food production and all the opportunities that pop up in a free market that have raised the standard of living for the entire planet in the last couple hundred years, especially. So free markets are a beautiful thing, providing value where there wasn't any before, turning something of low value into something of higher value by either working on it with your hands or moving it with your feet, we need people willing to do that. And as I talked about in episode 6 of this very podcast, How to Make Your First $100 Online, it is this model that we're talking about right now, the arbitrage model of taking a widget where it's $10 and moving it to somewhere where it's worth $80 to someone. Okay? I don't care what your passion is. I'm not telling you don't pursue your passion. That's not what I just said. But I'm saying, wouldn't it be great to free up your time by having a valuable business that adds value to the lives of other people where they pay you money? As my mentor Daniel Lappin calls those dollar bills, certificates of appreciation. Meaning every dollar you have in your wallet, right now, I can tell you, I can read your mind through this podcast. I'm going to go right into where you are. We're going to look in your wallet and we're going to pull the biggest dollar bill that we can find, the biggest denomination that we can find out of your wallet. And we're going to hold it up and look at it. And I can tell you exactly how you got that money. You ready for a cool magic trick? Go ahead, pull it out if you want to. You can hold it. No, I'm not going to have you send it in to me. I'm not going to have you mail it to me. I just want you to imagine yourself holding it. The big